Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to one of our Crossroads podcasts. I'm super excited about this podcast. I have Dan Kail with us here on this podcast. Dan is with Trailhead Christian Counseling, and that's trailheadchristian.com, right?
That's right.
And amazing ministry, folks, Christian counseling opportunities out there. He has an amazing team he's built. They were kind of upset because y'all moved from here, but you're down in Newcastle, which is awesome.
We're not far.
He's was with us Sunday, which is really cool. But boy, operating in pretty much every church from here to Rifle right now, and then throughout the state, right? So,
yeah, well, I don't know about every church, but we're in a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah.
In most of the towns between here and Rifle. So,
That's
yeah,
great.
Wonderful partnerships.
So I just really commend their ministry to you if you need help and know somebody that does. And I'm excited, super excited about this conversation. We're going to dive in on this issue of discipline and just some things you've learned, right? Personally, and that you've incorporating into your practice and things, and just some things we need. We need discipline. And obviously we talk about discipleship, following Jesus. Boy, those two words are actually a part of the same meaning. Discipleship is impossible without discipline. And so, man, just talk to us. Give us a little, lead us in this. I'm going to control the slides for us here. But talk to us. Lead us out in this.
So you were probably wondering, like you invited me to do this and maybe to speak a little bit about like Christian counseling, mental health, well-being, and all of that. And I come back to you with, Can I talk about discipline? I'm wondering, why do you want to talk about discipline? But it's been a huge thing over the past year for me, and I've seen it with a lot of clients that I work with, and the other folks on the Trailhead team, and even down in our church. There was a few of us that committed to really getting disciplined with our lives and putting first things first.
And that accountability is so important, right? To do it with others, right?
Yeah, to do it together. And it changed. I mean, it really for all of us, I think it changed our lives, the direction of our lives, and what we were doing. So, one thing that it revealed to me was the importance of that for mental and emotional and spiritual well-being, and. I'll talk about this more in a little bit, but how all those things kind of tie together, and they tie together biblically and in our real world. And we have I think a history, at least in our Western culture, which you and I were talking about, of these things being sort of compartmentalized or fragmented, and the idea of bringing them back together actually creates a more full person. So
fantastic.
We'll get into that a little bit.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So we'll dive in. Lead us off here with this idea of consecrated in discipline. Those are some big words there, consecrated.
So consecrated, I mean, my impression of it, it's kind of like it's dedicating oneself to something as in a holy effort to do that. And really, I mean, the reality is our bodies and our minds and our very lives here on earth are kind of on loan, and so. Instead of seeing it as one of the mind shifts that I've had going on is looking at like the things that I do that are comfortable, the way that I eat, the way that I sleep, all of these things. Do I look at those as just things that are for me, or are they part of a bigger picture? Because of the other work that I'm doing.
Sure, absolutely. So, I think of your idea of our lives are on loan. Well, I just think of stewardship, right? So loan, you have to steward that well, and we see over and over again, right? Especially in the parables with Jesus, that this idea of stewardship, right? Of talents, we've been given something precious, life, and all that comes with that. And there's going to be an account. I mean, we're going to stand before the Lord, and there needs to be this stewardship idea of, Lord, I want to maximize, and that should be holistic, as you said, right? Not this, I got these compartments down, but it all should integrate together.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, and I'll talk about this more too, it doesn't have to be legalistic, it doesn't have to be a struggle. It actually, I've found that it brings great joy and great peace, and there's an improvement that we see in our relationship with God and with others.
It's great.
So
I think Paul addresses that, right, to Timothy, right? And I think it's chapter 4 where he says, right, that, physical exercise is good. But boy, training godliness, right, is better for it's good for this life and the next, is that integration. When we put this discipline, everything you're going to talk about, it brings all the pieces together. You know what I mean? And connects them, holds them. And that's what salvation is making us whole as we grow and mature in Him. So
yeah, and it's all a process,
Absolutely.
I'm not here because I've arrived.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about this because I've arrived. I think maybe it's one of my first steps.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good.
So, anyway, I really like this. There's this C.S. Lewis quote.
It is a good quote.
If you want a religion to make you really comfortable, I certainly don't recommend Christianity. But I think in our culture, and I know you could speak to this, I think we've made it comfortable, which is kind of unfortunate. Right. We show up, we receive. It's kind of this, consumer type culture. Like what's the pastor going to tell me today? What kind of music is the worship team going to have that's going to make me feel good, and all this stuff. And that's there are times to be comfortable, to be held, to be embraced, and there are times to experience discomfort because that's where growth comes from.
Absolutely. And we live in, we talked a lot about this, but we live in an age, right? We've been taught and we've trained our kids and the younger generations, right, to be comforted, to be coddled as such. We've heard that word a lot, rather than, life is tough and we've got to develop discipline, and there has to be a sense of learning personal responsibility. Yeah. If we're going to obviously grow in godliness in God's ways, and just being coddled, and providing comfort is not really helping our situation. And we don't see Jesus doing that at all. We do see the ministry of comfort, right? To comfort each other and to be comforted. But, that's a ministry, not the movement forward.
Yeah, there's a Ecclesiastes, there's a time for everything under the sun. And so, and there's a time to mourn, there's a time to grieve, there's all these things, right? And those will often entail, a time that's needed for comfort. But ultimately, we all move through those things, and some of those move with us as we go, as part of our experience on earth.
Absolutely.
But moving forward, there is that growth that needs to take place, and to not get stuck.
It's great.
So.
Good.
So one of the things that that I've been learning is, as I was reading, through some of the Gospels and stuff, I started. This is a little bit of imagination, I suppose, on my part, but starting to really wonder, what was life like for the disciples, in those times to follow Jesus?
It was comfort, safety. It was all right.
Comfort, safety, relaxation, lots of rest.
Oh, yeah. Vacation, wasn't it?
Yeah, vacation, long vacation. No, I mean, as I looked at it, it was like, okay, well, yeah, obviously he's teaching them, he's showing them, they're learning. I mean, he's the ultimate teacher, right? And that's kind of the root of that word, disciple. But he's also disciplining them as the ultimate teacher, showing them, this is how we use our time. This is the time we take to eat, and we do spend time in joy together and comfort and relaxation. But we have work to do, and it's hard work. And so my imagination goes to, I bet there, I don't think Jesus had a CrossFit gym for these guys or anything, but I'm sure that that it was a physically draining practice.
I mean, when you look at the geography and you look at the miles, and people have done this, track the miles that they actually walked in those sandals through the. I've been to the Judean desert. It's not easy fare, and so they were plus they were fishermen, which was physically draining work. So these were in shape. There was a physical element for sure.
Yeah. So it was. The imagination could just kind of run wild with how difficult it probably was to be a part of his ministry, and the mental challenges that came along with it too. As you ask questions and Jesus starts reframing everything for you, like, no, not this way, that way. Oh, what you're thinking is incorrect, actually. Let me show you a different way. And you're like, whoa, okay, now my whole world as I know it is coming undone. What does this mean, right? Yeah. And that's all part of it as you're in the ministry. So
absolutely,
the discipline that's available to us, I think, in the here and now, when it comes to the mind, the spirit, the body, relational and all that is enormous. But we often don't engage it that way. We piecemeal things. We do one thing at a time. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to get taught. Then I'm going to go to my job. I'm going to be with my family. I'm going to do all these things, and they're all separated. But they need not be.
Yeah, boy, that's a good word. Well, hey, talk to us about, I think, the 3 Ds, because I think this is really insightful, I think, when it comes to this, what we're talking about, this discipline and integrated to discipleship and everything.
Yeah. It just kind of came to me, and we'll go through all these in a bit of detail, but dangerous, disciplined, and then directional.
That's good.
So there's an order to these things, and there's actually a biblical order to these. If you read the creation story, right, Adam and Eve, we're created with free will, and being created with free will is has potential for quite a bit of danger. And as we know the story, that danger was embraced and accepted, and the world itself is now a dangerous place. And with our free will, we have the choice to choose all kinds of stuff, right? Yeah. So we are now, and we always have been, in dangerous times. It's not safe.
Well, I think my mind just thinks a lot of things here, but just you think back to Adam and Eve, the potential, and the same potential we have right today with our will, this incredible, be made in the image of God with freedom to make a choice. And that is what a treasure to steward, because it's either going to go dangerous good or it's going to go dangerous bad.
Yeah.
And obviously we see both in the history of the world.
I see both in my life.
Yeah, this is true.
And then the discipline piece we see run throughout the course of Scripture as well.
Yeah.
Which is, are we skipping ahead? Oh, we should read this. Yeah.
Read that. Yeah.
Then we'll get into the discipline thing. Jordan Peterson, this is one of his quotes.
Yeah.
A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a dangerous man who has it under control. So how do we control, how do we harness the dangerous parts of ourselves and the dangers that come with this world? There's got to be some intentionality behind that.
Yeah, that's good.
And so we see this throughout the course of Scripture, these other people who are quite dangerous by design and faulty in many ways and sinful, and yet we see God's pursuit of them, right? To bring about clarity and discipline and an invitation to do things a different way. But it always comes with, and we often don't like this word, but it comes with commands. Do this instead of that. Structure your life this way instead of that way. Let me redirect you.
So what I hear you saying is just these 3 Ds working together. The dangerous thing is this incredible gift, the potential that we have as image bearers of God.
Yes.
And if there isn't discipline, godly discipline brought into that, discipleship, or but the holistic idea of that our destiny or your direction, whatever the 3rd D, is we're either going to fall in what God has for us to have an eternal impact, or it's going to go south, and could go south real quick, right? Or just be fruitless ultimately. A lack of clarity. I mean, it's staggering, right? The number of people that are going through life with zero clarity of their ultimate direction in life.
Yeah. Vision is important, and it's a bit of a moving target,
right?
I haven't known that many people. I've known a few that are kind of like, I know what I want to do with life. I know what I want out of it. I know how to move forward, and that's what I'm going to do. And they do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm kind of a little envious of that.
Right.
But a lot of us are kind of, it is that moving target. It's like I feel called to this place right now, or this thing, and I'm gonna go for it. But the discipline of that can really help us as we move through those difficult decisions.
Well, I just think, as you're saying that, I just think of your story.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, back here, right, first moving to Aspen, and and this whole idea of look how God, because of your discipline, the steps you took, right, look what God has done.
Yeah.
And is doing. I mean, just what year was it you came to Aspen?
Well, we've been here. It's somewhere between 7 and 8 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing to see what God is doing.
The ministry's been around only about 6 years, and there's 5 counselors on it, and 7 or 8 churches that we work with. It's unbelievable. Miraculous.
Yeah. It's I think it's proof of the process, right? We come to God, and faithfully we submit ourselves into discipleship and discipline, and He brings that clarity, that direction.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's still, even when we do things with God, there's still a certain extent of danger that's there.
Unknown.
Risks.
Risk and unknown.
That we take, especially when it comes to how risk and danger and safety are viewed in this world.
Yeah.
A lot of choices that that we make as counselors or as ministry leaders might appear very dangerous or thoughtless or careless or whatever, but hopefully they're not. Hopefully they're done in a place of.
And I want to swing back to you and ask you about just the idea of safety. This big thing of be safe. Today that's such a big thing. But let's move along because you got some really great stuff here. Talk to us here about discipline and discipleship. What you're learning.
Yeah. So I just threw up a couple of definitions here, and people can read these, but. Discipline it's an important idea organizing human action, including family and in work. It's related actually to the word disciple, which is fascinating. To discipline a child is to punish the child for unwanted behavior. Self-discipline is controlling your own actions. And then it talks a little bit about like what military discipline is like. We think about like, soldiers and the movies we've seen or books we've read and things like that. And that level of discipline, often, and I've done this. I look at people like in that kind of lifestyle that lead that, and I think, well, they just have something innate in them that I don't have, and it's actually not true. We all have that within us, and there may be different barriers that we have to break through in order to attain that, but it's still within us. The heart, we know this from children. The heart does require structure and discipline. A person's life. And in fact, I was even looking at my own kids recently, thinking about when they're operating at their best. Whether it's sports or in school, it is when all these things are starting to pull into some type of alignment, and they have good teachers and they have good coaches that are speaking into their lives, but they're also they're engaged in education and they're engaged in healthy social life, and all these things are forming. I think we've bought a lie that once we get done with kind of the education part of life, we graduate high school or we graduate college and we get all our freedom. Right. Well, I don't have to do all that stuff anymore.
Right.
And actually the mind and the body and the heart actually craves that still, to have some type of structure in our lives. And it might look different to each person, but to just sort of go out and be like, I'm done. And I remember the feeling. I'm done with all this. I'm not going to, I don't need to live under my parents' roof anymore. I get to do my own finances, all this stuff. And when it's
like a house of cards. It comes down pretty quick,
my gosh,
when
fast.
You try to, have a work and a schedule and nobody's there to kind of pick up the pieces for you or tell you what to do.
If you're paying attention, it gets revealed really quickly what your idols are and what you are worshiping, and hopefully you can pull that back in under some kind of structure.
And wouldn't you say that this is a big problem with marriage, right? Is that people that haven't really investigated discipline, when you bring that into a marriage, then, it's kind of doubly in your face, the things that we have to work on. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. I think all of these acts and the processes of discipline, again, they benefit all areas of life, all relationship. When you become more structured and more disciplined, you become I believe, a better husband, a better son, a better father, a better leader, a better employee. Right. You're more reliable.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this connection between a disciple and discipline. Well, as we're growing as a disciple in Christ likeness, then those things are going to naturally. We're going to mature. So we're going to have the fruit of the Spirit. There's going to be this advance. That we're going to see. Which will be great. So talk to us about consecration here.
So, we talked about that a little bit before. It's typically something that's of a spiritual or sacred nature, and it's just dedicating something. So, I think sometimes what we have to do is people, and what I've had to do, even in this last year, is look at my life as a whole, look at how I'm spending my time, the things that I'm doing, where my energy is going, and ask myself, am I really dedicated to the things that I say I'm about? Or am I worshiping false idols, or am I spending time just trying to find comfort, or just trying to find safety, or even for me personally, like finding time complaining about stuff, belly aching about things that aren't the way that I want them to be, but nevertheless, it's how they are, and what am I going to do with that?
And wouldn't you say that's I know I can just give test of my own life, is when I stop the grumbling, as God, think of the Israelites always grumbling, right? It didn't go well for them. And I start turning the conversation around like, okay, what must I do, Lord? What must I do, right, to to get over this hump or to get past this, and that's where the doors open for discipline, because it's usually something is. I know for me, if it's stress or something, man, if I lose that time with him to begin the day, even if it's off a little bit, man, it's like it shows up quick.
Yeah.
So it's back to, all right, Lord, let me get back to those priorities.
Yeah.
And reestablish that discipline.
Yep.
Which is, I think you said, I think a lot of times we think of discipline and it's legalistic. This is what I must do. And I think we talked about this on Sunday, and it's just always is seared in my brain that, we obey or we're disciplined for the Lord, not because we can earn his love and his approval.
Yeah.
We do this because of his love.
Yes.
Right? And there's a massive difference there that we can only learn as we advance.
Yeah,
so.
in relationship with him.
Yeah.
And you jumped ahead of me a little bit there, because I'll talk about that.
Perfect. I'm going to come back to safety in that one as well.
Safety on that one, okay.
Anything here on this slide?
Oh, yeah. This is it, actually. This is just what you were talking about.
We're there.
So, I think understanding and accepting God's love and acceptance, his mercy, his grace, his forgiveness over your life is just paramount. It's critical.
Absolutely.
It is phase one of everything. Yeah. Without that discipline, it's just punishment. You were just going to beat yourself up trying to become someone that you think you're supposed to be. You think maybe you want to be, or God wants you to be, but you won't really. You won't really know until you, and if you're stuck there, I would encourage people. I mean, if you're stuck in that, you just can't seem to get past. I can't believe that God loves me that much, or I can't believe that I'm his child, and that he would do all that for me. Then press in.
You're talking. It just the old classic by Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones. If you've heard of him, he's a pastor at Westminster in England. But he wrote a book. One of his big books was Spiritual Depression, and it just hits me that just on that idea of legalism. If I get caught in that works thing, and I got to do more type of attitude, man, it just leads in disillusionment. And that's where so many, especially, we don't even have time to get into kind of the climate that's going on right now, of people just bailing out of the faith, or people getting disillusioned, or moving to the fringe, moving away from church, is they've been caught in this the to-do, and it can sneak up on you, right? And boy, that's well put, I think, is that it does. Maybe we don't put words to it like this is punishment, but that's what it ends up feeling, disillusionment. This feels like self-punishment. Why am I doing this? And with no intimacy, right? With none of the fruit of the Spirit, the joy and the peace and the abiding aspect of with Christ that we should have.
Yeah, and this is, I completely agree with that. And this is not like a one-stop thing. Like, do this. This is, like I said, phase one, and then move on. Right. You keep going back to phase one. We'll continue to revisit that. We need that relationship with our Creator, the author of our lives, to get the direction, to get the discipline, to strengthen us, and to give us the resolve that we need to do the things He's calling us to do. And without it, it's just it really is just punishment.
So let me ask you this, because I think this is such a big thing, is I think, do we need discipline to get to the desire? Like if I say, let's just say getting up early to be with the Lord. Let's talk about that one. Okay. Well, I just don't have the desire. Or we're talking to our kids. I just don't have the desire. Where does the power of the discipline come in? In other words, discipline is usually required before I get to the desire. And I think a lot of us, right, are waiting for the desire, and then I'll start doing this. But boy, it's...
I think it's different for a lot of people, but I think it's a little bit of a both and.
Yeah.
I'll tell you just kind of a quick story. I had a couple that I was working with, and we were just actually sort of chatting after session, getting caught up on some things, and I was telling them about sort of this program that I was doing, this discipline type program, and the guy's eyes lit up, and he was like, "We should do this." Okay, I mean, what makes you think? I mean, I'm not prescribing this for you. Right. It's not going in your chart.
He was wanting to do it with his spouse, like as a couple.
Yes. And he said, I think this will really change a lot of things.
Wow.
And I wanted to be sure that their hearts were in the right place. They weren't just trying to create a program for themselves that was going to fix everything.
Right.
but I wanted it to be done from a place of like love and desire to actually to connect with God on a deeper level. That was included, that was part of it, that there was a spiritual component to it. Perfect. And it did miraculous things for this couple's marriage, and still is. Wow. They continue, they go out, they're doing things together, they're talking about things. And here's the fascinating thing. They told me at one point that all the things that they were arguing about, that they were nitpicking each other about, most of them just fell away. Because they were spending so much time doing these other things together that the little things were not important. Fantastic. Their minds were refocused on other things that were more important, and the little things fell away, and the things that were big, well, suddenly they had time to connect on those things because they were spending more time together, encouraging each other in this other stuff, and so it came. The problems finally started getting addressed from a place of love and desire instead of just, let's get through this.
It's fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think, boy, in that, just to kind of maybe summarize that, you've got to have both, right? Again, that integration of desire and discipline. And if I'm struggling in desire, I need to get discipline. And if my discipline doesn't have desire, right, I need to press in and really ask those questions, right? And pursue, maybe I need to change things up or something. Maybe I'm too caught up in my... Right? And even the Bible, right? Getting up, reading the Bible every day can become just discipline and no desire, no real intimacy there.
I mean, the idea of discipline and all that, I mean, being challenged is part of the human nature. Whether you're competing with others or competing with yourself is actually, I mean, chemically we get like serotonin from it. Like we actually get great reward from doing it. From escaping the comfort and engaging the challenge.
Right.
There's all kinds of benefits to it.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, it's hard.
Yeah.
It has to be hard for the benefits to come.
Yeah. It's great.
It's
funny. A few years ago, you rode with the staff over at Crested Butte on mountain bikes, and it was that
was hard.
And so again, they're saying we want to do that again this year. So there is that sense of excitement that motivates us to. We realize it's going to take some work. It's going to take a lot of work. It's been several years now. So but that's so good.
And I think we find in those moments too when we push ourselves physically in something like that, and we, sometimes it feels like we're coming to the end of ourselves.
Yeah.
Physically, maybe mentally, maybe emotionally, starting to come unglued a little bit. Right. And again, it's in those challenging places, those places where we feel almost like, almost tortured.
Yeah.
That things from the heart really start to surface.
It's wonderful. And then you have the nothing like doing it together.
Yeah.
And the encouragement, right? Just that discipline is so much easier, shall we say, when we do it together.
Yeah.
So we need that.
Very good.
Yeah,
so this is a great connection to what we're just talking about, because there is a battle between, our complacency, our ambivalence, our desire to just be comfortable and safe with everything. Yeah. It's so tempting to fall into that. And in our culture, it's so easy, to get home, watch TV for a couple hours, have a beer, eat something bad for me,
get worked up while watching the news.
Yeah, right. And then go to bed and find that I can't sleep very well because I'm all wired. So, I mean, there's several things that you can find on developing good habits, but it does take time, and that time comes from discipline. And again, there's that balance of not just trying to this isn't a pull yourself up by your bootstraps type thing. It's embracing it in a place of love.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go back to this idea that, our bodies and stuff are on loan.
Yeah.
I mean, if we really want to honor the gift that we've been given, let's do it. Let's commit to it. Let's consecrate these things.
That's great.
And make some commitments because it is a gift.
Absolutely.
But it can take, 18 to 254 days to create a new habit. Average is 66. And it's funny because I had heard, I forget what the number was. I think I heard 22 at one point was people were zeroing in on. And when I was doing my program here earlier this year, I hit 22 and I'm like, I'm not there.
Yeah, right.
I am not there. I'm still, I hear the internal grumbling and I've got some mindset stuff that needs to be addressed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
A lot of sense.
James 1. Yeah, let's talk about this a little bit. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Boy, that's so great. So again, it's God's word encouraging us, almost encouraging us into trials. Like, when Jesus said, you will have trouble. Expect it. Don't run away from it. It's coming.
It's coming.
No matter how you set up your life, no matter all the things you do, you're not getting out of this without some struggles. You can either do it with me or without me.
Wonderful. In this world, you will have tribulation. Not might, but will. We see nothing of comfort, in this world at least, but in our soul. Right, peace. Obviously, for this Spirit is that just like Jesus sleeping in the middle of the storm, he provides us the ability to be at peace, even in the midst of whatever is going on in the world. Right?
Yeah. Well, why do so? I wrote this is my question to me. I might have even journaled this at one point. Why do I seem to be more wired for comfort than challenge and adversity? Why and how does my comfort interfere with my relationship with Jesus?
Oh, that's a good question.
And it's something, I'm not saying I have a simple answer for that. This is not formulaic, but those are a couple great questions to really wrestle with.
Boy, absolutely. And to just kind of filter out of our life, to really have to open up to the Lord, to expose to us those areas where we've just gotten kind of slack or where we are taking a safe and comfortable approach to things,
or why, and I agree, and it's the why. So a couple things for me that I noticed were like I gravitate towards like coffee or having a beer at the end of the day or a glass of wine or something like that. That's like but it's all about the comfort. But as I make a commitment to strip those things away and say I'm not going to do them for a while. I'm going to see what gets revealed in me. And it's like it's not necessarily a need, but we'll often use the language in counseling like that it can be a dependence, and that we have. So it's not like we're addicted to these things necessarily,
right?
And that's a big conversation that's happening.
Wow.
That just because you don't have a chemical addiction to something doesn't mean you're not dependent on it. Or that you have a mindset that like this is the thing that I need that's going to get me through.
There is a coffee exemption to that, though, isn't there?
I don't know.
Quiet time without coffee. I mean, try fasting.
Yeah.
For me, just getting off coffee for a couple. It takes me a couple days just to kind of get into it, which shows wow, I'm really more dependent on that comfort thing than I realize.
Yeah, they sneak in.
They sneak in, and there's a lot deeper ones than those, obviously.
Yes, so, absolutely.
No, that's excellent. Excellent.
So, addressing mindset is something I think that's critical, and it's interesting because Jesus does this with the disciples. You and I were talking about this earlier. He'll sometimes say things, like I'm paraphrasing, but no, Peter, that's not the right way to think. You kind of got that wrong, or you got it backwards. I'm going to do it this way. It's like, wait a minute. You want to undo the way that I've been thinking about this for X number of years? I have to completely shift. I have to reframe the way that I see everything.
And really, the Sermon on the Mount, the whole entire Sermon on the Mount was a radical mind shift for these Jewish people.
Right.
And the disciples are sitting there like, what? I have the complete shift of mindset. We don't realize how big a shift it actually was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's excellent.
So I would say if that's not happening in whatever discipline program or whatever it is that you're choosing to do, if your thoughts and your mindset are not being challenged, then something's missing.
Yeah.
We need to unravel, all of us, we have some unraveling to do.
Boy, a lot. I just think of just the simple principle of Philippians 4, right? Paul says, whatever is, and he lists all those good, righteous, pure, think on these things, It's just a mindset of, boy, am I even aware of what I'm setting my mind upon? And
what's great about what you mentioned, doing things together, with others and inviting them into the process. And that's part of that discipleship, right?
Absolutely.
Is if you open yourself up to feedback in that way, it actually, the mindset stuff and all that gets a lot easier, but you got to be open to it. You got to invite people in, hey, what are you seeing in me right now? And you can start actually getting hungry for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, I found this, few things here that mentally strong people don't do.
Wow.
And I think, I would preface this by saying, we all struggle with this to some extent or another. Right. Even mentally strong people, these things creep in. But
absolutely,
the mindset part of this is these creep in, and if you're in practice with addressing the thoughts that can be toxic, right. You hit that pause button and you go, whoa, hold on a second here.
Yeah.
This may be something I need to deal with. This might not just be an external thing that I'm grumbling about.
That's great.
There may be something that's God's trying to reveal to me.
Right.
So, they don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. They don't shy away from change. Don't dwell on the past. The past can be important and helpful. We learn from our past. Right. But to dwell in it or hang out there for too long could be really unhealthy. Don't feel that the world owes them anything. If anything, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
We owe. In fact, I'll talk about that in a minute, responsibility, but, and they don't fear time alone.
Wow. And this is from I'm assuming she's a secular psychotherapist, right?
Yeah.
But these are biblical truths.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, these are all, we could find verse after verse, right? Where Jesus supports these as part of just what it is to live the Christian life.
Yeah.
So hey, all truth is God's truth.
That's right. I agree.
So.
And then I just threw up a couple of Proverbs here. Proverbs is the book of wisdom.
Wisdom, man. Boy, we need wisdom.
Yeah.
Now in this age.
Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody the other day and who works, in kind of much larger spheres than I do. And he was just saying that, that's what's missing in the public arena among leaders is where's the godly wisdom? Where's the Daniel type wisdom, right? Godly wisdom.
Not me.
We need
not
that.
This Daniel.
So, yeah. Sure, we need your wisdom. But, Daniel in the Bible, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
That's right. Well, I love the first one. To learn, you must love discipline. Oof. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. Wow. But we have to learn. We have to learn to love it. Yeah. To love discipline. Yeah. It's so. Yeah. It's so backwards from what we think. Why would I love discipline?
Yeah, my mind immediately goes to Hebrews 12, right? That God says He disciplines us right, for our good. Because we are loved. And he goes on to say that a loving father disciplines their child. Yeah. Otherwise, you're illegitimate. And so that to love discipline is because my God loves me and has good things for me. So I need to learn how to love that process. You know?
Loving correction.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. I think my kids any day now are going to get it.
Yeah, one of these days, hopefully.
And then I think, to be responsible with that too. And to be responsible with the lives that we're given and take ownership of it.
Yeah.
And that's empowering. I mean, that's a word that gets used a lot in culture right now is to be empowered. Mm-hmm. How are you being empowered? Is it just by some kind of blanket level of like authority that you have? Or are you being empowered by the discipline you're receiving?
That's great.
Because you love it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good.
So I think this might be one of the last slides. Close to it anyway, and we're close to time. Yeah. This goes fast.
It does go fast. Interesting.
So sometimes people will say, if you get yourself involved in something like this, you commit, and this really is, it's about committing things, and consecrating your time and the things that you're doing. It's like, well, isn't all this going to distract me from my priorities, my family, my work? Yep. Aren't I going to be overly consumed with all this other stuff? Right. It's selfish, right?
Yeah.
To do all that. Well, wake up call for me, news to me. I was already crazy selfish.
Interesting.
But it was how I was spending my time.
Yeah. Boy.
So it reveals and surfaces what is most important.
Yeah.
And if it draws me away from my family or my work and I'm not doing as good of a job, then you start examining that. Why?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Could we say that one of the most selfish things that we do is waste time? Waste my time.
Yeah.
Because that's not good for me or others that I'm around, right? In many ways. And that's the lack of stewardship in what God has given us. Yeah. That precious commodity of.
Yeah. And with all this, as we're developing and maturing and being sanctified, right? How can that be selfish? Because ultimately, the as the inside begins to get healed and begins to receive clarity, what comes out?
It's good.
Well, I hope, I believe, a better person. It's a person that knows to love better. Love thy neighbor.
It's fantastic. Well, man, just in wrapping up here. Boy, talk to us maybe next steps or just, hey, what is, what is someone listening to this? What do I do next kind of thing? You know, just to kind of wrap a bow around the whole thing.
And so these last things are just some things to maybe be hopeful for or what to expect out of this, which are some great things.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great.
And I'd say get with somebody that knows you. Maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a pastor or a loved one, but get with someone who knows you and start processing, some of these components, and start taking consideration of could I rededicate myself in some areas, whether it's and I don't want to say I don't want to piecemeal it because we talked about that and say this. It's like how can I pull my life into greater alignment? And bring these things together and integrate them. So, some physical discipline, some nutritional discipline,
absolutely, right.
Some biblical discipline, some relational discipline, some growth in the way that we think. Get to commit to reading every day. Open a book. It doesn't always have to be the Bible, but open a book.
Right.
So I would just encourage everybody just to take some time to do that, and you will see a transformation with your mental, emotional, and spiritual health.
Fantastic.
I really believe that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I just think about just awareness, how powerful awareness is to just be aware of it, to ask some of these big questions, and process with somebody. Just, boy, how much time, am I even aware of how much time I'm taking in, let's just say, of media and what the world says versus how much time I'm taking in and resting in what God's Word says, and how much time am I thinking about things on the kingdom of the world versus the kingdom of God,
right?
And just
That's
the awareness of knowing, I think some of that, and man, any final thoughts for us?
In summary, I think I would say you just back to this idea of discipline and discipleship. I believe that we are all created to be discipled.
Yeah.
We're all created to be taught and to be formed.
Wonderful.
We are, back to that original idea, we're all relatively dangerous people left to our own devices. And yet we're image bearers. We're created in the image of God, so there's so much goodness.
It's wonderful.
We need each other.
Yeah, boy, we do. And I just, that fits into my kind of mantra, if we want to call it this year of discipleship, right, is that's the Great Commission. Go make disciples, and to make disciples, I have to first be discipled. And sometimes I need to be in a process of discipleship for a long time before I step out and actually do that. And boy, that discipline integration, there is so key in this. So, Dan, thanks, man.
Yeah,
just
you're
some
welcome.
really great nuggets there. I hope this has blessed you. And again, if you can use it all, Dan's services, Trailhead Christian Counseling.com. Just some great
Trailheadchristian.com.
Trailheadchristian.com. And boy, just thanks for being here. It's really great stuff.
Thanks for having me.
And let's know how we can
with
help. Be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all for joining. God bless.
Hey.